Hello and welcome to the Trevor Roberts Talkfest podcast. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's another late night. Got my coffee with me. I am ready to go talk about Bachelor episode 5. Um let's just go ahead and jump right in it tonight. Got some good notes here. Um I want to first start off with Maria. Obviously, it was sort of anticlimactic, but at the same time, I was just really glad she didn't go home. Um, it was like sort of, is she leaving? Is she not leaving? They really did good with episode 4, and I liked how they did just a 1 day cliffhanger because the fact that Joey didn't have to go and have a conversation with her to get her to stay or anything, she just kind of like was able to fight through her desire to leave and then come back, and she stood there proud, and then she said, "I'm 100% here. I'm not going to be pushed out." If they would have made everyone wait a whole week, it just feels like sort of that cheap cliffhanger that there was a little bit of a I'm going to walk out, so let's use it as a cliffhanger, but because it was only whoa, my the vents in the house just turned on. It's very cold in here. But anyway, that was kind of scared me a little bit. But because she ended up just deciding to stay right away, it felt like they didn't need to overdo it. So again, a little anticlimactic, but I was glad she stayed. Um, we get the rose ceremony. Edwina and Allison go home. Edwina and Allison were definitely Team Maria, and so that feels like a bummer for Maria, but also Sydney's gone, right? Um, and which is why it was just so wild to me that Sydney leaving, it's like Sydney's energy just transferred right into Leia. And I talked about that a little bit last week, but that just continues on. Right from the jump, we get little comments, just like just every, no matter what's happening, they're always making sure to get a little comment in there with Leia. It felt like they were almost trying to do it overboard. I'm not sure that it was as much as they made it seem like. I don't think Leia just hates Maria as much as Sydney, but I definitely think she doesn't like her. And I was able to listen to your mom and dad podcast, and Jess and Evan really touched on this interesting phenomenon that happened, which I thought it was such a cool point. So the whole thing with Maria starts over and Medina and Maria having a thing about age, and then they squash it and they're able to move past it really quickly. And Sydney is just like uses this to be like, no, you shouldn't have said that. You're bad. You're rude. We all hate you. And like, I gotta stand up for my friends, and I have to be the one to do this if no one else will. And Medina at this point like doesn't even care. She's like at this point she's like got a friendship with Maria. And then Sydney leaves. She gets sent home. And now there's other girls kind of championed by Leia, but there's other girls too, like Jess. I feel like there's more than that, but they're like, yeah, like we're with you, Leia, and we hate Maria too. And it's like Sydney's gone. You don't have to continue this. And it was just like, I think Evan was pointing out how wild that is that they were both saying that maybe Sydney should start a cult because Sydney never even really had any drama with Maria, but she was able to just galvanize everyone based on this thing that didn't even affect them, just to stand up for the little one against the big bad Maria. And then even after she gets sent home, like almost in a movie, like her character dies, everybody that's left behind is like, now Sydney's the martyr and the like the cause that we can all get behind. Um, and I don't know if I'd seen that before either. Usually, when someone gets sent home, the other people are like, well, okay, so we sort of lost that battle, but I'm still here and I can still build a connection with the lead. I'm going to use my time wisely. Like, you kind of just let it go. I mean, obviously, if it's a big sometimes it continues on, sometimes there's other people, but no one else really was vocal about Maria that much, except for Leia was a little bit, but it didn't seem like it was that much, except for Sydney. And Sydney didn't even, it wasn't even about her. That was just the wildest thing. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, all right. So then the whole crew goes to Spain. I the the drone, if you will, view that we get of Spain is just breathtaking. I mean, it was crazy. It was like it was sort of like reminded me of Pandora, where it was like these cities was built on the top of almost like a mountain, and then in between the rocks there was huge drop offs, and then there was water and trees down below. It was like they built a city way up on the top. It's gorgeous. I'd never seen that part of Spain before. Joey does the like monologue again, like he did last episode about Spain this time, and it was horrible again. Which is funny because it's endearing. Like Joey is awesome, but not good at monologuing cities. Kelsey A says her grandma's from here, and then she ends up getting the one in one. And then we cut to Leia. Like I'm not gonna really. I wrote in my notes like every time Leia makes a comment, and I thought I was gonna say that. I think I'm just gonna drop it. Like she just it's constant, and I think I'm gonna just kind of focus on the one on one with Kelsey here. So Kelsey A, she gets the one on one. Um, and what was cool about it was we didn't really see what happened, but um, it must have been that they were all in Spain. They're all sitting around the table and they're kind of having conversations, like that first day vibes. Like, yeah, we're all chilling, and it sounds like he rolled up in his Vespa and he chilled with them all for a little bit, and then he's like, all right, now I got to get on this date with Kelsey A, and we hear a lot of the girls talking about how um, they were really sad about like by that. Like there wasn't a there was no date card, so there was no anticipation for Kelsey A. Like she didn't really have any time to get in her head about what she might want to say. I mean, she probably wasn't as prepared as she could have been for that date, and she really crushes it. But there's also no preparation for the women to be like, I'm not the one going on the one on one. And there's the unknown, and then they just find out right on the spot that it's not them, and they have to watch her leave when they all thought they were hanging out with them. And then, she gets on the Vespa and they ride off together. It would have been kind of a bummer, but it was interesting. You see several of the women talking about how they're genuinely sad. And so, this show really does bring out real feelings in people. I thought their date was super cool. So they do like sort of just a walk around the city. And I don't know, but that European city seemed in Spain, it seemed very like just walkable, hang out with the people playing soccer, try to get some charcuterie. It looked like they did a quick wine tasting, but they probably didn't drink a ton. I swear, I feel like there's a spirit in this room with me because like the vents really turned on and there's a lot of air movement, but also I feel like I can hear somebody walking around. Super awkward, super scary. Um, but it just felt like it couldn't have been more of a perfect date. They make a wish together in a fountain. Um, Sorry, it's so late. She says she wants to travel and have fun and explore new places. She says she's starting to trip a little bit, not quite falling. And then later on in the date, she says she is falling. Um, we get to the dinner portion though. Joey looks awesome. She looks gorgeous and classy. I loved her dress, very classy. She's just got this beautiful, huge smile, and I mean that in the most 100% truly compliment. Her smile is so big, and you can just it lights up her face, and it just gives her so much energy. For me, she had. I mean, what's amazing about this season is normally the last couple of seasons I've watched, I've really only felt like I'm so sorry. Just I gotta start doing this earlier so I can not be so tired. Um, I've only really felt like two or three, yeah, two or three of the women when it's like The Bachelor. Um, I was just like, oh, if I was me, like I'd be just totally smitten. I would just be like zoning in on these two, and other people are kind of maybe gonna win me over, but like I can't help myself with these two. And on this season, it's like there's like seven or eight women that are like that. And I think Joey feels the same way. I think there's a lot. Love is like, as Jess said on Your Mom and Dad, love is in the air. Joey's liking these women, and the women are liking Joey. And the only thing is, the women just don't like each other this season, which is awesome. This is a perfect, it's the perfect season, really, because Joey really is the kind of guy that anybody would want to be with. And so many of the women are women that you would be anybody would be lucky to marry and be with. But also you need the drama, and so the drama is that the women just don't like each other and they don't get along. And Jess and Evan are talking about how awesome the women tell all is going to be this season, and I was like, yeah, it is. It's going to be the best. And I haven't really seen a good one in a while. In fact, I didn't even really look forward to watching the women tell all on charity season. I don't think I just didn't think it was going to be good at all. um so I'm really looking forward to the women tell all, the whole drama thing. I mean, and everyone's gonna come at Maria. And what's so interesting about that is Maria can handle it. Like, she just is poised. She's quick. She's really articulate. She stands up. She's confident. She has perfect posture. She can like be attacked by multiple people and kind of handle them all one at a time and be like, okay, let me take you down and then take you down. And you know that they want to jump in and they want to fight the big bad Maria, but they're all a little, they're just, no one's as bold as her. In comparison, they're all timid, and you know that she's going to take you down. And anytime you're sort of having a little battle with somebody like that, especially if it's in front of people, and you go into it knowing like, okay, I don't stand a chance in a verbal argument with somebody because they're just better at verbal arguments than anyone I know. You just like, your mind is rattling, you can't keep up, you start spiraling, and you're going to lose. So I don't see it going well for anybody that tries to come at Maria in the women tell all. Um, but back to where how this kind of got started. Kelsey A was not probably in my top five. I mean, because there's like Lexi, Daisy, Jen, Maria. I guess know I'm forgetting someone else. Um, I mean, I liked. I mean, she probably is number five. I guess Kelsey A is probably right there. I'm probably forgetting somebody else. I know Rachel's up there. Rachel would not be in my top. Um, and again, I'll talk about this in a little bit. I feel like I really starting to feel like he likes Rachel like a friend. And I don't know that I believe that she's just not top four, I don't think. Even though I think he had a great time dancing with her and probably like to see that part of who he could be with her. I'm sure that when you're the bachelor and you're in this sort of situation, you're on the one-on-one date, you're like, yeah, it makes sense. I'm going to give him the rose. I do have a thing with them, but I already am comparing in my head a little bit because that's what you do when you're the lead in the show like this. And you just know that, like, okay, you know, I like you. You're definitely like top six out of 32 women, but these are 32 amazing women that were handpicked for a reason, and you're not top four, And so, not like it's a bad thing. And I don't feel like there's the romantic enough chemistry being shown to us. It seems more friendly to me. Maybe not. Um, but I think like they even talk about with Rachel, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself with this, but like they did a really good job of showing how Rachel hasn't really had that much time with them. This was the first one on one, but they start off on that very first group date with the wedding dresses, and she just really stands out. And then she wins the time. And then they go to kiss in front of everybody else. And then so they kind of get married on their first interaction, and then there was like other interactions along the way, and because they had such a good first interaction, anytime Rachel got time, she didn't use it to get involved in the drama, she used it to just develop a little bit more and more, so he just feels really comfortable around her. Then they do the one-on-one, and it's the dance, and that's fun, and so it's like opening up a little bit more shells. But when she goes to talk, like at the dinner portion of their one-on-one, I'm just gonna just totally do everything I have to say about Rachel right here. She goes to do the dinner portion of the one-on-one, and she talks about the challenges of dating a nurse. And since we just saw what I'll come back to is Kelsey A's dinner portion of her one-on-one with her talking about her mom, um in comparison, then it's not the same level of emotion that you need to get out. Now, my wife's sister is a nurse, and my best friend's longtime girlfriend was a nurse, and that was like during the time where we were hanging out with your best friend pretty much every day, and we worked together. And his girlfriend was always around, despite the fact that she was a nurse and worked all the time. And so I became close friends with her too, and just had a lot of conversations about like was a nurse in the ER. Also, my mom is a nurse. Also, my wife's mom is a nurse. So, my wife's mom works in the ER, and um, we have two kids, so we've interacted with a lot of medical professionals. And my best friend's ex girlfriend became a CRNA after uh, being an ER nurse. And my wife's sister has worked in, I think, maybe the ICU a little bit, but she's also worked with elderly that need assistance. And so, like, I really get that dating a nurse probably isn't easy. Oh, yeah, my sister's wife is a nurse. Like, should mention that too. And like, she has a coolest job. She like after moms give birth, and I don't think she helps a lot, maybe a little bit with like, okay, delivery, but usually it's like when they go to the next room and you're kind of like, you're there for 2.5 days and making sure baby's okay, making sure mom's okay. That's what my sister's wife does. That I think that would be one of the most fulfilling jobs on the planet. I'm like, they get to hear like every day she goes to work, she hears like 20 brand new names that moms are naming their kids. Super cool. Um, so I totally get like they work 12-hour shifts a lot. Um, they're on call all the time, and they have to work holidays. They have to work long hours. You kind of have to plan around it, and it would be a thing. It's sort of like, I don't want to say as difficult as dating a pilot, but it's like worth bringing up. I don't know if it's worth bringing up. I do think it's a thing that you would talk about when you get to a really serious, like sometimes they don't even show, they pick each other and they go back into the real world, and it's like, okay, well, you live here and I live here. Which one of us is going to move? And are you going to quit your job? And are we going to move in together? What are we going to do? Like, sometimes they don't even show those conversations. You just know that they're going to eventually figure that stuff out. And so now the ones, um, Rachel was a pilot, and they made that a big thing. Like, well, you're going to date a pilot? We have to travel all the time, and we not only do we travel all the time for work, but we also are like gone for 3 or 4 nights in a row, and then when we get home, we're home for a little bit, but then we're back on the road again. So life is just constantly not being at home. Also have a, I don't even know what the connection is, but it's like sort of it's like 3 or 4 ways. Like my wife's sister's husband's sister is a flight attendant, and she's gone all the time. And So I've kind of thought about what would life be like in their relationship as she's gone all the time. And she goes on trips to Europe, so I think it's like she's probably gone for a week, I would guess. Maybe not, maybe like 4 or 5 days at a time. And I do think it would be tough. So I think that's something you bring up and you can kind of like make it a thing. But with the nurse thing, I think if that's all you got to bring up, sure. But it just felt like to me, kind of, let's just bring this to a close. It didn't feel like when you get your one, probably your one on one, and then you get your dinner portion, and you get that's your moment that you're gonna bring up something like about your life that was hard, something that you can show some vulnerability. And now I have some stuff that I could bring up, but I don't know that I necessarily would, because a lot of times people talk about like Jen talked about deteriorating relationship with her dad. Well, if her dad sees it, he's probably not happy that that was shared. And if the mom sees it, mom has friends in the real world that probably watch the show, and it's like, oh, I guess we're getting a see inside your life, and you didn't have a great relationship with the dad. So like when you talk about certain things, you do have a real life back home and people that are watching the show that are probably learning some like sort of like dirty laundry that you don't want to share. So I could get not wanting to share something. I don't know if I would or not, but I could probably come up with something better than just like, hey, you know, dating me could be difficult because my job. So I just think, and Joey handled it like it was so important and so big of her to share that. I think Joey's just a stand-up guy. I really don't know that he felt. I think I think that it was like that was the moment that he was like, "You're gonna get this rose, but you're not top five. You're not top four." Let's go back to Kelsey A. I got a little bit of a bird walk there. Um. Oh yeah, I was talking about how she had a big eye, big smile. She has big eyes too, and such amazing energy comes from her. So then she talks about how her mom and dad met in the military. They're both military police officers. Her mom won Soldier of the Year multiple times. She was an amazing woman, and you hear that. It was like she was an amazing woman, and instantly you know. And she brought so much light into every room she entered. About 10 years ago, she gets diagnosed with breast cancer. They gave her 6 months, but she only made it two. And she's crying, and Joey looks devastated. Um, I was literally brought to tears when Kelsey talked about this, and that doesn't happen a lot. Um, I mean, it was just wild. And then she talks about how she calls her she believes in signs, and she her when she sees butterflies she thinks of her mom. She saw butterflies in the center of New Orleans where she's from. Then when she's about to go on the show, she calls her dad. Now, what do you think mom would think about this? And he's like, you exude your mom. You're just like her. You're your mom's daughter. She'd be so proud of you. She'd be so excited. This is exactly something she would do. And it's just like, oh my God, it was so emotional in that moment. And you could tell like that was exactly what she was feeling emotional. Joey was feeling emotional. He does such a good job of being there for her and talking about that. Um, he says your mom would have been proud of you for coming on the show, and he's excited for their potential future. And he says he's smitten for her. And I wrote down that she skyrockets up my list because I think it's hard because like well, Daisy, I feel like is number one, and Lexi's got to be number two. Jen is really high up there. Maria's kind of like an um like you never know what to expect because I think he just has high ups and high lows with Maria, and Maria kind of plays the game a little bit of like she throws out the card like I don't know if I can get there with you. So with when you're the bachelor, you hold all the cards, you have all the power, and everyone knows in relationships there's a power dynamic. And if you have all the power, you don't quite feel as invested as you could as if they had the power. With Maria, she takes some of that power back a lot. Multiple times she does that. And we know that Joey's like very attractive to her physically. And we also know that she makes out with him like fiercely. Like she just pulls him in. You can see major tongue happening. Her body like squirms when she's making out with him. And you can just tell like he's so into her. But at the same time, there's so much drama there, and I don't think he feels like she like there's a scene in the promo for upcoming episodes where he says, "What if I propose and I don't know if she's going to say yes? How scary would that be?" I honestly think he's talking about Maria in that moment because there's no other girl that is like top 4 that might not say yes. I mean, Lexi's going to say yes, Daisy's going to say yes, Jen's going to say yes, Rachel would say yes, Kelsey A would say yes, Kelsey T would say yes. Maria's the only one. So it's got to be Maria. And I genuinely don't know if she would say yes either. Like that's why it's got to be her. So she's up there. So I didn't think Kelsey A was up there with them. But now after this one-on-one, like that's the thing is Daisy had a one-on-one and it was perfect. And then I think Jen has a one-on-one, not quite perfect, but really, really good. Like that's why I think she's like top 4, but she's like 4th. Lexi has a one-on-one, really good. So it's like to me, it's like Daisy and Lexi are 1 and 2. Um, and I think now Kelsey A is 3rd, and then Jen's 4th, and then Maria is like could be at any position. She could be 5th, she could be 1st. Just kind of depends on how Joey's handling all the craziness that surrounds her. That I don't blame her for at all. So, um, it's just such a good season. All right, so let's see. Did I miss anything starting? Yeah. All right, let's. I think that's all I have for that. Um, let's go to the group date. So they're gonna make a quote and turn it into art. Um, not a lot to say about the group date. Maybe we'll skip to the night portion, but I guess I'll just say that Leia, she did the best painting by far, but she showed some of her character and the way she talked down about Jess's painting. And Jess's painting wasn't terrible. But you just see like in the ITM her making fun of Jess and they're like friends. And she has all that from the last episode where she was talking about how she like is ride or die with her friends and she has a high standard of friends. And then she's kind of bringing her down a little bit about the painting. It was almost like, how did Jess get the extra time and I didn't? I mean, yeah, you had the best painting, but I said this back in the very beginning when Leia got the first impression rose. It makes total sense that she gets the first impression. Well, I guess I didn't really go into all this, but what I said was she got the first impression rose, but he doesn't like her that much. Or it's not going to turn into a romantic thing, and she's not going to make it that far. Now, she's already made it pretty far, but I really think this is like a producer thing. This is her being involved in the drama, and now Sydney left, but they're not letting her go yet. I do not think she's 23. She's coming across immature. I know 23-year-olds don't like to hear that, but she is. You can see it in comparison when you look at someone like Medina and Kelsey T. Those two are 31. Maria, sometimes they give her an edit where she's like standing up for herself a little bit, but she's just had it and people are coming after her and she's like had enough. But look at Kelsey T and Medina. They're both 31. You can just tell that the late 20s, 30-year-old women, very mature, good head on them. Jess And Leia, I think Jess is like 25 at the most, maybe 24. Leia's 23. And you can just see it. And Joey, I do not believe has any romantic connection with Leia, but just has to keep her. But why does she get the first impression rose? It's because she was on the after the rose thing of charities. He meets her. He's known her for like 3 months. So then when she comes out of the limo, it's like, oh, the only familiar face. And I'm excited for you. And then she gets that card. She looks gorgeous when she comes out of the limo. She's got the card with her. Everyone knows she's been holding on to it all this time. And she says she's going to wait to open it with him, but then she can't wait. And then she opens it and finds out she's going to steal something. She does. Now, I'm going to say this. She does a very mature thing and burns the card and doesn't choose, like, she's not going to hold on to the power to steal someone else's one-on-one. Very mature. So not saying she is an immature person. I should say she's just done some immature things the last couple of episodes, but maybe that doesn't mean she's immature all the time. But even when she burns the card, she keeps saying a few times like, I could keep this. I don't know what I'm going to do. Like, it was like she knew what the right thing to do was, but she didn't want to. She didn't want to give it up, and she'd held on to the card for so long, so it really was hard. She kind of wants to milk it and get the screen time. And she's talking about like keep the dress, the earrings, the hair. Um, I heard Tom Brady say something yesterday or today where you want to be a selfless person that is all about the team and you want the team victory. And Leia just seems like a schemer. Like, I said this last time, she's got this once in a lifetime opportunity to go on the show and she's not going to mess it up and she knows how to play the game. All right. Enough of that. Night portion of the group date. So Jen expressed that things are getting harder because she's starting to feel something for Joey. Joey sees that as a compliment. Kelsey T expressed how much it hurts not being able to just treat him like a little real boyfriend. I totally related with that. It's like you're kind of starting to feel like you're dating this person, but you don't have the freedom to just call them. Like, you ever been in the early part of a relationship and you just like know you should maybe not call because you don't want to come across too needy, but you just like are feeling it so hardcore, you've got to call and you want to talk all night long. And you can't because you're on this weird show where he's dating 20 women and you're one of them. And like, you're sitting at that table and he's going to get up on the Vespa with Kelsey A and you just have to watch him right off. And that would be really hard. Um, Daisy and Lexi look like they're having a great time. It was really cool. We get some Maria time that's not about drama, and she shares about how her mom gets in a bad accident with her when she's 1 and how she was pronounced dead, but she made it through it. But unfortunately for her mom, it sounds like we didn't get a lot of details, but her mom broke every bone in her body, went through depression, wasn't capable of being a great mother all the time. We have to assume that's because of a lasting injury that she has. Don't really know yet what that could be. Dad stays with her because of her health, but I'm not sure that they're still together because she also said in the beginning of that her mom left and she didn't know why her mom left. So maybe they're not together anymore. Um, but Maria says she knows how quickly things can change and she's working through things with her mom. So she chooses to always have a fun energy. And like Joey finally gets a little something of Maria and he loves it. He latches onto it. Like, I understand why you choose to be fun all the time. And then they just have like the most hardcore passionate kiss. This is where you see like the tongue and she's squirming and she's pulling him in again. And then Maria gets the group date rose. And Maria's like laughing, like she can't even contain herself. She has to cover up her mouth because she's laughing so hard. And all the other girls like are just staring at her like, I hate you. And Maria, in that moment, she had to have just felt like just like take that, because they all have just come for her, and yet she gets the rose. And she, even though the 2-on-1 probably wasn't a pleasant experience, she kind of gets the rose prior to the ceremony, and the two with the 2-on-1. Now she's getting the rose prior to the ceremony again. So back to back weeks, she's safe, and she has like extra time throughout the week to just feel safe and feel validated of who she is by the lead, even though a lot of the girls aren't liking her. So I was all for it. I'm Team Maria 1,000%. So then we cut to Rachel's one-on-one. I'm gonna skip this because I just went on a tangent earlier and talked about that. Um, and then let's see. Let's go to the cocktail party. Let's go to the cocktail party. So Joey looks freaking awesome in his dark red suit. Daisy asks him how he's doing. Gives her a hard time. He loves Daisy. She's 100%. I'm wondering if Jen is a doctor, because she's like, oh, I brought this like stethoscope, and she listens to his heart while making out with him. I thought that was a pretty bad move. Like, just being like, I'm gonna like, Jen is incredibly beautiful, like stunning, and you're making out with her while she's showing you how into it she is by listening to your heart while making out. That would not be something I forgot for a long time. But we don't get to see a lot of it. It's just like we see that and then it's moving on. But that was intense. We see Jess starting to feel nervous. Autumn, I just they showed her really quickly. She had a beautiful smile. She gets sent home, which I thought was such a bummer. Um, then we get Caitlin sharing a little bit, but then Maria cuts her short, and Jess says Maria is disrespecting the girls because she already gets a rose. Caitlin tries to stick up for her and is like, it wasn't that big a deal. Jess strikes. Okay, so then after it's all like done, Maria just comes and sits down and is just like plops down right next to Jess. I don't know if they like make her do that, just coincidence, but she just plops right next to Jess. And she just sits there and smiles, doesn't say anything. Yeah, no. Jess just looks at her and is um, so you just thought you'd go and get some time? And Maria's like, yep. And she's just like, that was so disrespectful. And Maria like comes at her and just kind of backs down. And Maria's like, that's what I thought. And Jess is like, oh. And she goes, you're just so fucking rude. And um, Maria like comes at her. And then Jess says that was a fake ass apology. Disrespectful you to grab him, bitch. And so then Maria, gets called a bitch. But Maria is like, I'm so sorry that I have a connection with him and that breaks your balls. And I just like couldn't believe, like, I would not want to go come at Maria, because she's just gonna come, she's going to dominate you in any argument that you're having with her. Um Jess is about to lose it, and then Jesse Comer, like, the comedic timing, he just shows up and he's like, so sorry to crash the party, but the rose ceremony is on and the cocktail party is over. Um, and then we get Autumn and Medina going home. Leah says, watch your back. And then she has a cruddy quote. Then the promo for next week or for like the rest of the season looks wild. Okay, so after the show, I thought that the episode was good. But as I was like kind of thinking about what I wanted to talk about a little bit, the Golden Bachelor like episode of the wedding comes on, and I'm like just writing some notes. I turn the volume down, but I don't want to turn the TV off because I want the light on. And I look up, and it looks like Braden's proposing to Christina on my screen. And so I'd like rewind a little bit and turn up the volume, and he was. And I think Braden is the man. Just like, I think I'm trying, if I were to make a list of my favorite people from Bachelor Nation, I think Braden might be number one. Um, Aaron is some pretty stiff competition because that guy is so funny. And then there's got to be other people like I just that aren't coming to mind right now. But Braden is the best. He's just awesome. He clearly made a couple mistakes on Bachelor in Paradise. Like it just sort of seemed like he didn't know what he wanted. But obviously, it worked out really well for him because he meets Christina, and then he just proposes to her right on there. I couldn't figure out how long they've been dating. Maybe it's a lot longer than I realized, but it's got to be like less than a year because I think Bachelor in Paradise was on TV not that long ago. But she says yes, and now they're getting married. They're like wild. I gotta like learn more about this. I just like I just happened to catch it. It was such a cool little thing to catch. Um, your mom and dad's podcast was great. Um, unfortunately, there's just not as much to say this week because um, last week's episode was really a lot more um, interesting with the 2-on-1 with Sydney. I felt like this week it was just like, for me anyway, I'm sure a lot of people would have more to say about the whole Rachel date because maybe they really buy into it more than I do. I really just sometimes I just call it and I'm like, no. And maybe that's me and I'm not feeling it, but I don't think Joey's feeling it with her, even though the dancing thing was really cool. And Rachel's just really cool. And I just think they're not romantically connecting like he is with some of the other ones. And since we get to see it from like a total third party view, yes, we only see what they're showing us, but it seems like he has a romantic like hardcore connection with a lot of them and almost like a very passionate infatuation with Maria. I don't want to say it's just infatuation, but um I think that's the initial pull and then possibly could turn into love with her. Um I noticed that Jesse Palmer has not been hardly at all in the last two episodes, and the last two episodes are the first two international episodes. I think he might be a recent dad, like he might have like a 6-month old or less at home. Actually, I think his baby was born in January. But wouldn't this show have been filmed like before the baby was born? So maybe he just like wanted to be home for his wife while she was pregnant. I don't know. Like it's just he hasn't been around a lot, which is kind of a bummer. I like hope that there's nothing bad going on there because he is awesome. Like huge fan of Jesse Palmer's. So the rest of the season looks brutal. There's a scene at the end where he says something like, I don't think this has happened before." He looks devastated at the end, but of course they always show that. Um, I don't know how things could go wrong for him because so many of the women want to be the one at the end. And so I just don't see how it couldn't work out. The only way would be if he picked Maria and she says no. Um, Otherwise, I think he's going to pick Lexi or Daisy or Jen and or Kelsey A, and they would all say yes. So I don't know. Very interesting. I can't wait for next episode. I'm very excited for the Women Tell All. That's going to be awesome. Um, I'm going to do another episode either this weekend or sometime soon on part 2 of The Third Door. And thank you all for tuning in. All right. Talk to you soon.